Hamas has accepted an Egyptian-Qatari proposal on the hostage ceasefire deal. Now, Israel, I'm going to give you a quote, and I'm going to let you hear a little bit from our State Department. The head of Hamas Political Bureau spoke on the phone with the Prime Minister of Qatar and the Director of the Egyptian Intelligence Services and told them they agreed to the ceasefire. Israeli officials said Israel received Hamas's response from the mediators after Hamas announced it had accepted the hostage deal. The Israeli negotiations team is studying the Hamas response. A senior Israeli official said it seems Hamas agreed to a different proposal than the one Israel had agreed to. And here is the quote from them. We are trying to understand if Hamas's response is a final position or a basis for negotiation. So Matthew Miller, State Department spokesman, talking from a U.S. perspective on what we want.
We will be discussing this response with our partners over the coming hours. We continue to believe that a hostage deal is in the best interests of the Israeli people. It's in the best interests of the Palestinian people. It would bring an immediate ceasefire. It would allow increased movement of humanitarian assistance, and so we're going to continue to work to try to reach one.
But they are looking at this, and they said they're still reviewing it.
We have only received the response in the last hour, 90 minutes, and as I said, are going through it now and discussing it with partners in the region, so I don't want to characterize the nature of that response just yet.
So there has been a ceasefire negotiation that's gone on that the U.S. is tracking. Is it possible that this is a ceasefire negotiation that the U.S. wasn't tracking?
So I've seen those suggestions. I've seen some of those reports, and I hope you'll understand that because we are still reviewing the response that has come in and because we are working on this in real time and trying to reach an agreement, I'm just going to decline to comment on detail about any of those reports.
Now, he talks about the ceasefire being a top priority. I think this is an important thing to hear.
We're going to be discussing this response with our partners in the region in the hours ahead. It remains our top priority to try to reach a ceasefire agreement that will lead to the release of hostages, that will allow a surge of humanitarian assistance both into Gaza and allow it to move around inside Gaza. But I don't want to comment on any of the various reports about what they might have been responding to until we've been able to go through it in detail and come to a full understanding and discuss it with our partners.
See, part of the issue, though, is that there is still hostages that have been taken and have not been given back, that they have not returned. So it's interesting that the part of the negotiation is the release of hostages. Isn't it interesting, and I mean this sincerely, isn't it interesting that that's a negotiable, that at some point releasing hostages are negotiable? So the Palestinians don't want Israel to enter Rafah. So Hamas now attacks Israel and humanitarian aid. That just happened. You look at what Hezbollah is doing to the north. The Houthis are still doing this in the Red Sea. The Iranians are still funding and are still antagonizing in the region. And yet the Israelis are the ones that are being held under a microscope now to agree to a ceasefire deal. They have acquiesced on a number of issues throughout this process. The one thing they want are the hostages back. How in the world is it for how is it for anyone in the Western world to look at this situation and saying the release of hostages are number one? There is no possible peace negotiation, especially when Israel is in the final push to completely decimate Hamas in southern Gaza. They've already warned, evacuate. Well, where are they going to go? Egypt will not open the gates and allow refugees into Egypt. Why is that? So now you have Hamas saying, under our terms, well, you're losing. You're losing this war. What do you mean under your terms? Shouldn't it be the number one issue should be, and it should be in the minds of everyone, for everyone out there that is this pro-Palestinian protester on college campuses, free Palestine, and all these other things you're saying because of genocide and occupation, why aren't you? And I'm asking this as a very sincere question. Why aren't you enraged that October 7th, not only did Hamas murder everyone in their sight, there were no civilians. Men, women, children, the elderly. Women were brutalized. They were raped and they were murdered, but they also were slaughtered. Their bodies were destroyed. They desecrated the corpses, and I don't want to get into all the details of the horrible things I saw. I did not see any of the sexual assault in the video I watched. I saw the 47-minute video. I saw bodies, not only people being murdered, just indiscriminately murdered. Shooting into crowds, shooting into homes, shooting into cars, murdering everybody in their sight. But then they took hostages. They have found plans where they were going to take more children hostage. And there's no outrage. That there isn't anyone saying, especially if you're someone that is on the side of the Palestinians here, how you can in good conscience not say, you know what? I understand that you want things, but taking hostages, women and children, and torturing them and doing what you're doing is not the look I'm going to support. I've played a couple of times today audio from Hillary Clinton, First Lady, Secretary of State. Well, first she was the First Lady, then she was a senator, then she was the Secretary of State. And she tells stories of how, as the First Lady, she watched her husband back in 2000, almost 25 years ago, negotiating and trying to get a two-state solution, which the Palestinians declined. And then again, as Secretary of State 5 years later in 2005, that when Israel completely pulled out of Gaza and displaced over 50,000 Israelis and pulled them out of Gaza, there are no Israelis in Gaza, and yet Israel is being called the occupier. These are people that don't understand that when they say occupation, it's because the Palestinians believe that all of the land that now is Israel belongs to them. And from the river to the sea means they are going to push the Israelis. Let's be honest, they're going to push the Jewish people off of their land. That's the only solution to them that works. They're not fighting for a two-state solution. And the closer it comes to a ceasefire or peace, you're going to see Hezbollah, you're going to see the Iranians, you're going to see these little terrorist cells that are going to continue with their attacks. The Houthis are not going to stop in the Red Sea by attacking shipping and free commerce. Their goal is disruption. It's just disruption. So now you've got, and I guess I should be careful, because in my mind, what I see is propaganda. What I mean by that is I think other nations are negotiating in good faith with Hamas. Hamas understands that if Israel begins its push into southern Gaza to finish this off, it's going to be the end of Hamas. So they better do something. But they also are negotiating. They're watching American students and they're watching Americans infiltrate campuses, because it isn't just students. These are people that are much older agitators that are going onto campuses in America. And they are agitating and riling people up with this Free Palestine movement, that all the Palestinians, all Hamas had to do was say, we'll agree to this. No one is going to look at the details. No one is going to look at anything else. They're going to say there was an offer for peace and Israel didn't take it. That's going to be the narrative. Mark my words. Even if the U.S. comes out and says, isn't giving back hostages, this is not the deal that's been in the works, this is something else, you are going to see people scream that Israel doesn't want peace. When you look at historically what Israel's done in the name of peace, it's just an unfair characterization.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch the first season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.